All right, beautiful people. Testing, testing. Just want to do a little test. Sorry for being so loud in the mic, but trying to do a little test just to make sure everything is squared away. Hold on real quick. All right, I did a little sound check. I made sure everything is squared away. So we about to get into it. We're gonna do a little housekeeping. Y'all be patient with me. I know that I don't post as often as some of y'all would like me to, especially people who are really following along with these motherfucking books. You know what I'm saying? And y'all trying to get through it without having to go through it on your own. So I completely understand and respect it. But a little housekeeping. So later on today, I'm gonna have a live going on. Let me show y'all real quick. I'm gonna have a live going on right here, and this is just, like I said, this is just to make sure that y'all get some information for the people that follow my content, because I know Obdurately seems to be all over the place. I have a more of an eclectic, platform where some people kind of stick to one niche and they just work on it and pound it out. And me personally, I ain't got time for that. I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. You know what I'm saying? And I like to do a lot of here and there. So just in case you are into sports, you know what I'm saying, this is a nice little live to get engaged with. I'm gonna have a live going because the next chapter is having a pay-per-view event. I think it's tomorrow. It's called Summit 03. Don't hold me to it. But yeah, there's that. And on the antithetical antagonist, let me show y'all that real quick. I done changed stuff around, y'all, so I gotta get used to my little setup. But see, this is my other channel. Y'all could come here and get some content. I got, some clips already, some videos. Nah, I don't got a lot, but I'm gonna be posting. I got a bunch of motherfucking videos that I need to edit and post on here. So it's gonna be here. And then I also have, for the people that is into athleticism, I also have my athlete channel. You see what I'm saying? My athletic channel. So y'all could come here, motherfucking, engage. I mean, I do everything. Shoot, motherfucking carry my own loot. You see what I'm saying? My junk is glitching. It's showing the wrong video, but look at this. I'm over here toting up motherfucking heavy weight by myself. It's a long time before I get there, but y'all see it, man. Y'all see it. So this is just a little housekeeping. Just let y'all know. Come check me out, Tier the Athlete, or y'all could check me out at the Antithetical Antagonist. I got multiple content out there. But here we're gonna get into this book because I know a lot of y'all y'all waiting to get through this book. So today we are gonna get through chapter 10 and 11, all in this. So make sure y'all like, comment, share, subscribe. You don't even have to subscribe. I know that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Motherfuckers subscribing, and sometimes people don't even know if they really want to subscribe and participate in that content. But at least if y'all appreciate the topic being discussed here, share it so other people can get engaged with the conversation. However, without further ado, let's get into this book. Barack Obama and the Jim Crow Media: The Return of the Nigger Breakers by Ishmael Reed. Make sure y'all tap in. You see what I'm saying? So anyways, like I said, we read 10 and 11 because 10 is kind of short. So we're just going to cram it out. But let's go. We already 5 minutes in. Let me hold this up so y'all can see it. How Henry Louis Gates got ordained as the nation's leading black intellectual. Post-race scholar yells racism. Again, this is motherfucking chapter 10. Now that Henry Louis Gates Jr. has gotten a tiny taste of what the underclass undergo each day, Do you think that he would go easier on them, lighten up on the tough love lectures? Even during his encounter with the police, he was given some slack. If a black man in an inner city neighborhood had hesitated to identify himself or given the police some lip, the police would have called SWAT. When Oscar Grant, an apprentice butcher, talked back to a Bay Area rapid transit policeman in Oakland, he was shot. Given the position that Gates has pronounced since the late 80s, if I had been the arresting officer, post-race spokesperson, Gates accused me of racism, I would have given him a sample of his own medicine. I would have replied that race is a social construct. The line that he and his friends have been pushing over the last couple of decades. After this experience, will Gates stop attributing the problems of those inner city dwellers to the behavior of 35-year-old grandmothers living in the projects? Gates says that when he became a tough lover, he was following the example of his mentor, Nobel laureate Wo Soyinka, as though his and Soyinka's situation was the same. As a result of Soyinka's criticism of a Nigerian dictator, he was jailed and his life constantly threatened. Prior to the late 80s, Gates' tough love exhortations were aimed at racism in the halls of academy. But then he signed on to downtown feminist reasoning that racism was a black male problem. They love to paint that motherfucking picture. It's a black male problem. Let's continue. Karen Durbin, who hired him to write The Village Voice, takes credit for inventing him as a public intellectual. He was then assigned by Rebecca Penny Sinkler, former editor of the New York Times Book Review, to do a snuff job on black male writers. In an extraordinary review, he seemed to conclude that black women writers were good, not because of their merit, but because black male writers were bad. They love juxtaposing black females and black males. I mean, we've seen it in the most recent election with Donald Trump, where when Donald Trump won, they literally pit black men and women against each other, praising black women for voting blue, Democratic, and scolding and disparaging black men for voting for Trump, which at the same time they were pushing this bull crap that black people are synonymous to liberalism, Democratic Party, the blue side. So I wasn't able to comprehend how could black men be Republican and vote for Donald Trump, but at the same time black men supposedly still vote blue. They still vote Democrat. I mean, please make it make sense for me, because I don't understand it. Said this was a response to an article by Mel Watkins, a former book review editor who, on his way out, warned of a growing trend that was exciting the publishers' cash registers. Books that I would describe as high harlequin romances, melodramas in which saintly women were besieged by black male or cruel black male oppressors, the kind of image of the brothers promoted by Confederate novelists Thomas Nelson Page and Thomas Dixon. Now, this reminds me of the women's suffragist movement, because during the women's suffragist movement, you had women like, what's her name? Elizabeth Canton, I think her name was. Also, the same broad that they motherfucking praise here, Susan B. Anthony, amongst several other women who were anti not only black men, and they were opposed to the idea of black men gaining voter capabilities because of the fact that they felt like black men getting the ability to vote over them means that black men gets to wreak havoc on them. They get to perform all these heinous activities because they get political power before white women. And in the same breath, these same women, Elizabeth Canton and Susan B. Anthony, the same one that niggas praise today, talking about they did so much for the black community. They did so much for disenfranchised groups. These same people hinder black women for even joining women suffragists. That's why I think it's asinine that in today's day, you got a bunch of black women claiming to be feminists. When feminism first came into picture, black women weren't even allowed in the space. I mean, look at the history of women's suffrage movement. We were literally intentionally kept out as if we weren't women. Sojourner Truth got a whole speech, "Ain't I a woman?" To which they tried to block her from even speaking. As one of the panelists in regards to that stupid women's suffrage movement. That's why I don't rock with no feminism, because feminism doesn't exist for us black women. The women's suffrage movement didn't include us. The same way that they looked at black men as hindrances, they looked at us the same way. That's why they pit black men and women against each other. It destroys the union between the man and the woman, and then ultimately the children, the further generations. How do you destroy an entire group of people? By getting their men and women to fight against one another, which trickles down into the later generations, the children. But let's continue. Gates dismissed a number of black writers as misogynists, including me, who is Ishmael Reed, whom he smeared throughout the United States and Europe. But when Bill Clinton was caught exploiting a woman sexually, he told the Times that he would go to the wall for this president. Feminists like Gloria Steinem defended the president as well, even though for years they've been writing about women as victims of male chauvinists with the power, the kind of guys who used to bankroll Miss Magazine. Houston Baker Jr. criticizes Gates for defending the misogynistic lyrics of Two Live Crew. Not to say that portraits of black men should be uniformly positive. I've certainly introduced some creeps in my own work, but most of the white screenwriters, directors, and producers who filmed this material, and the professors and critics who promote it, are silent about the abuses against women belonging to their own ethnic groups. Ding, 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 ding. People always like to paint black men as like they're motherfucking homophobic, as if they are solely abusive to women and children, like they're just the only ones engaging in like grotesque, heinous acts, including sexual. And the truth of the matter is that it happens in every motherfucking group. But for some reason, when it comes to the black community, they like to take these motherfucking rare instances, these motherfucking these data sets that wouldn't even, they will be ignored in any other space, and they motherfucking blow them up and they generalize them and they apply them to the entire group. So now they got a bunch of weirdos out here thinking that black men are just hypersexual, even though you got motherfucking Jake Paul all on social media playing with a dildo that is intended to imitate a black man's phallus. Make it make sense. Niggas shaking it on. These white boys be doing all types of gay stuff when it comes to black dudes. But it's okay because of the history around racism and stereotypes, the buck breaking black men, how mother effort came from the fact that they used to force black men to procreate with their mamas just so they can expand their slave force. But black men and women are solely inherently violent. Make it make sense. History shows that when these motherfucking white people came over here, history shows that we just been defending ourselves. When you read books like this one, Black People Are Indigenous to the Americas, research material, it lists several motherfucking Aboriginal indigenous tribes through people's memoirs, writing to their kings in the 1400s, the 1500s, the 1300s, the 1600s, in other countries, telling them how they came across these black, swarthy, tawny, copper-colored Indians who gave them such great hospitality. Then you keep reading. You come across this book. Between these two books, they talk about how these colonizers, these settlers just come across these black people. They look upon a person and they say, "Ooh, she beautiful." Now they literally stealing people. This book literally listed an example of some other, I think it was Spanish people that came to, it was called Virginia then, but Virginia expanded over several states back then. Virginia's reach was huge. But anyways, they got to their location, these settlers, and these niggas saw this little boy and this girl. The girl they found attractive. They tried to kidnap the girl. The girl fought, screamed, and everything. And then in the description of this dude's little letter to his king, he's talking about the girl did all this kicking and screaming. We couldn't take her because she wouldn't let us. So we settled with just taking the boy. And they were French. And they took the little boy to France. Kidnapped him from the Americas. Couldn't get the girl because she kicking and screaming and going off. So they kidnapped the little boy who was incapable of defending himself. But black people are inherently violent. Make it make sense. Anyways, let's continue. Not to say that portraits of black men should be uniformly positive. I've certainly introduced some creeps in my own work, but most of the white screenwriters, directors, and producers who film this material, and the professors and critics who promote it, are silent about the abuses against women belonging to their own ethnic group. Yes, they are. Moreover, Alice Walker, Tina Turner, and Bell Hooks have complained that in the hands of white script writers, directors, and producers, the black males become more sinister strawmen than they appear in the original texts. There are big bucks to be made in promoting this culture. 2 studios are currently fighting over the rights to a movie called Push about a black father who impregnates his illiterate Harlem daughter. The movie ended up being titled Precious. These niggas fought over a movie about an incestuous black dad who rapes his black daughter. And y'all remember the promotion behind that movie. It was galore. Everybody and their mama sing Precious. A representative of one, according to the Times, said that the movie would provide both with a gold mine of opportunity. As an example, and see, this is why another reason why I ain't really rock with Monique like that, because Monique get on here complaining about how the white man treating the black people, and then Monique sit there and take on the role of playing in a movie that depicts black people in such a negative light. But then you wonder why the same crackers that thirstily wanted you to play this raggedy role don't want to pay you what you feel that you are owed. Nigga, you're a pawn. You're a token. You have no autonomy of your own. And in fact, you're beholden to the rich. All these celebrities are. And you're nuts. Absolutely nuts for celebrating these niggas and thinking anything other of them. Aside from motherfreaking pawns beholden to people that are richer than them. Even the narratives, the way they dress, whom they marry, the amount of children that they have is all controlled. So when you come out here thinking like, oh, I rock with Kyrie Irving because he's this, he's that. This nigga is already in the system, brought to the system, controlled. It's controlled opposition. It's always existed. Let's continue. As an example of the double standard by which blacks and whites are treated in American society, at about the same time that the Gates article on black misogyny was printed, there appeared a piece about Jewish American writers. Very few women were mentioned. Gates was also under pressure for making himself the head black feminist in the words of feminist Michelle Wallace as a result of his profiting from black feminist studies. Sales because, as she put it in The Voice, he had unresolved issues with his late mother, who was, according to Gates, a black nationalist. The black feminists wanted in. As a result, Gates invited them to join his Norton Anthology project. The result was the Norton Anthology of African American Literature. Now, if I'm not mistaken, anthology is a term for saying compiled stories into one. But let's Google it real quick so we can know for sure. Actually, what am I doing? I got 2 mice over here. over here confusing myself. But let's look at that. Okay. Should Google? Actually, I don't need to Google. And bro, get that. Get me. There we go. A published collection of writings, such as poems, short stories, or essays, often curated by a central theme, genre, historical period. AI isn't credible, so we'll go to something more credible. Yeah, a collection of literary pieces and passages. All right, so now that y'all know what anthology is, now y'all know what Mr. Man was doing, okay? So with that being said, let's continue. So he had this anthology of African American literature. And it said one of the editors was the late feminist scholar, Dr. Barbara Christian. She complained to me almost to the day that she died that she and the late Nellie Y. McKay, another editor, did all of the work while Gates took the credit. This seems to be Gates' pattern, getting others to do his work. Mother Jones magazine accused him of exploiting those writers who helped to assemble his Encarta Africana, of running an academic sweatshop, and even avoiding affirmative action goals by not hiring blacks. Julian Brooks of Mother Jones wrote, Henry Louis Gates Jr. has never been shy about speaking up for affirmative action. Indeed, the prominent Harvard professor insists that he wouldn't be where he is today without it. Odd, then, that when it came to assembling a staff to compile an encyclopedia of Black history, Gates hired a group that was almost exclusively white. It's crazy how common that is, even in these spaces of entertainment where most of the entertainers are Black. But then when you look at the ownership, that board, that members board, Black is bleak. But let's continue. Henry Louis Gates Jr. has never been shy about speaking up about affirmative action. Indeed, the prominent Harvard professor insists that he wouldn't be where he is today without it. Odd, then, that when it came to assembling a staff to compile an encyclopedia of Black history, Gates hired a group that was almost exclusively white. Of the up to 40 full-time writers and editors who worked to produce Encarta Africana, only 3 were Black. What's more, Gates and co-editor K. Anthony Apaya rejected several requests from white staffers to hire more Black writers. Sounds about right. Mother Jones turned to Gates for an explanation of this apparent inconsistency. Did the staff members who expressed concern that the Africana team was too white have a point? Gates responded, it's a disgusting notion that white people can't write on Black history. Some of the best scholars of Africa are white. People should feel free to criticize the quality of the encyclopedia, but I will not yield 1 millimeter to people who criticize the makeup of the staff. It's wrongheaded. Would I have liked there to be more African Americans in the pool? Sure, but we did the best we could given the time limits and budget. No, you didn't, when you had people literally requesting for you to hire more Black writers, and then you refrain from doing it. And this is why a lot of people who today are considered Black, but truly identify as American Indian, American Aboriginal, American Indigenous, but they look Black or what you would classify as Black. The reason why a lot of these niggas, one of the reasons why a lot of these niggas is saying we don't come from no motherfucking Africa, is because of the fact that when you look at the historical context around America, before it was called America, where it was referred to as Turtle Island, this entire continent from motherfucking Canada all the way down to South America was inhabited by Black people. So much so that I love proving people wrong with literature. So there's a page in this book, mind you, I don't know anybody but today's Black people who would look like this. I even got a homeboy from middle school that looks like this. But anyways, Let me just show y'all this little piece. But this is why people, they be like, white people be trying to put black people in Africa because then white people could be like, well, I come from Africa, so now I could speak on black matters. And it's like, nigga, we don't even come from Africa. So you could come from Africa all you want. You still can't speak on our stuff. But let me show y'all. In this book, it's called The Destruction of Ancient Cities and Artifacts. You can't even see the page. It's so motherfucking brighted out. Jesus, help me now, Lord. Okay. And the book is called Revealing America's Dark-Skinned Past. Okay. I'm going to read this whole page and then I'm going to get back to Mr. Barack Obama and the Jim Crow media, The Return of the Nigger Breakers by Mr. Ishmael Reed. But I want to show y'all this. So it says, from the moment of the arrival of the European to the North American continent, many of the indigenous cultures began to show signs of decline. The lack of historical information led some to believe that these societies were the victim of some sort of extinction. But new archaeological evidence shows that the process was one of replacement and social evolution. This is why I'm going to read this book at another time, because I'm going to elaborate on this when they talk about replacement and social evolution. I'm going to give y'all some information in the future. Y'all going to be like, nigga, where do you get this conspiracy theory from? A conspiracy theory is nothing but an estimated projection that is attempting to make sense of a motherfucking random phenomenon that took place. Look up the motherfucking meaning of conspiracy and look up the definition of theory. When you blend them bad boys together, conspiracy theories do not have the negative connotation that you niggas be applying to it. That negative connotation came from these niggas in power, the government, the corporations that wants to mislead you and make you think that, look at all these psychos telling you about our business. Don't believe them. They're psychos, even though they hitting the motherfucking nail on the head. But anyways, let's continue. The burden of the lack of historical information lay directly in the hands of the conquering Europeans. Let me repeat that. The burden of the lack of historical information lay directly in the hands of the conquering Europeans, and later to the European settlers. For those who don't know, that the United States of America is actually referred to the United States of America Incorporated, which is a corporation, not a government. It's an illegal government. It's literally a business that is ran by 7 different countries. Yeah. Great Britain, Spain, motherfucking Russia, China, and there's several others involved, but I'll be drawing blanks on the last 3. But these niggas run the U.S. If y'all ever tuned in to motherfucking Candace Owens and y'all heard her talk about Providence, Utah, and then she make her way over to I think it's like Maine or Vermont or something, and she start questioning the high presence of France, motherfucking government, the power structures running Russia over there, and then you got a bunch of people like, yeah, it's mad strange, this is America, but it's almost like we're controlled by the French. Duh. 7 countries control the America because America is not ran by a legal government. It's ran by a corporation. But that's a story for another day. Focused here. Let's bring it back. The burden of the lack of historical information lay directly in the hands of conquering Europeans and later to the European settlers. As stated previously, when the Europeans arrived to the shores of North America, they encountered Negroid societies. Let me say that again. As stated previously, when the Europeans arrived to the shores of North America, they encountered Negroid societies. These will be considered today as black people. But let's continue. And the conquerors did not want to leave evidence behind of advanced Negroid cultures that exhibited systems of civilization. A lot of the things that exist today exist before colonizers, before Europeans, before settlers, before these white people got here, bruh. Some of y'all have heard about the Moors. Y'all getting there. But it said there were people in Panama that were described as such. These people are identical with the Negroes we have seen in Guinea, Africa. In the early 1560s, a Spanish official wrote to the king that in the island of Puerto Rico, there are above 15,000 Negroes and less than 500 Spaniards. And then in all of Hispaniola, this is in the 1560s, mind you. In Puerto Rico, there are above 15,000 Negroes, less than 500 Spaniards, aka white people, Europeans who speak motherfucking Latin. And in all of Hispaniola, another Latin community that they be trying to make like it seem is white. In Hispaniola, there may be 2,000 Spaniards, and there are over 30,000 Negroes. Puerto Rico has a greater ratio of Negroes than motherfucking Europeans. Hispaniola has a greater ratio of Negroes to Europeans. And let's see who else do. The same is the case in the island of Cuba and in Veracruz. The same is the case in the island of Cuba and in Veracruz, which is in Mexico. Puerto de Caballos, which is in Honduras, and in Nombre de Dios, Cartagena, Santa Maria, and the coast of Venezuela, where there are 20 Negroes to one white man. Negro was a terminology that defined a person of a dark complexion. The term Negro or its equivalent was not used for race, which is a concept that in the early 1500s had not yet developed, or for a single stock of people. So Negro did not describe a single stock of people, but in fact, it pointed to ancestry, it said it did not point to a single stock of people or to point to ancestry or ethnicity. But in fact, Negro was usually a single description for perceived color or appearance. Not ethnicity, not race. Just your color, your appearance. And Negro was one of the many terminologies that was used to define the indigenous inhabitants of North Americans. So when they keep trying to tell you that the indigenous inhabitants of North America is some white folk, it's not, bro. It's not. But give me a second. I gotta edit something real quick, because I'm trying to make sure that this gets out. Make sure y'all share, man. Share. I'm about to share now, so that way get some more people in to see this. Because the whole point is to get people in conversation. That's it. Get them in conversation. All right. Boop. Boop. Y'all forgive me. I'm just trying to make sure everything is squared away. Hold on. And then bam, we good, y'all. So let's get back to this book, y'all. Forgive me for the little pause that I had. All right. I just got a notification saying that my stuff is not streaming well. Let me check my settings just to make sure everything is okay. Stream is good. Video. It looks okay. We just gonna make it do what it do, because it's just gonna have to work. Okay? It's just gonna have to work. Anyways, let's continue, y'all. Forgive me for holding you up. Forgive me for holding you up. So let me see where I left off. While his alliance with feminists gave Gates' career a powerful boost, it was his op-ed for the Times blaming continued anti-Semitism on African Americans that brought the public intellectual uptown. It was then that Gates was ordained as the preeminent African American scholar when, if one polled African American scholars throughout the nation, Gates would not have ranked among the top 25. It would have to be done by secret ballot, given the power that Gates' sponsors have given him to make or break academic careers. As Quincy Trope, editor of Black Renaissance Noir, would say, Gates is among those leaders who were given to us, not only by the white mainstream, but also by white progressives. White people love giving you their tokens. Here in Rochester, they gave us a Demar Meeks, a black token man. But let's continue. Anyways, Amy Goodman carries on about Gates and Cornel West. Cornel West, many people don't even realize, but this man runs for president every presidential election. People assume that it's only Democrats and Republicans that run, but there's ample other candidates that's run. They just go unnoticed because there's a big power machine that backs Republicans and Democrats called the RNC-DNC, the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee, to which they pool funding through lobbyists, other politicians, motherfucking corporations, donations from little people, money from everywhere. Dark money that don't even be motherfucking disclosed. You see what I'm saying? And then they help motherfucking put on or help the nigga win that they endorsed, the candidate that they endorsed. But let's continue. Anyways, Amy Goodman carries on about Gates and Cornel West like the old Bobby Soxers used to swoon over Sinatra in July 2009. Rachel Maddow called Gates the nation's leading black intellectual. Who, pray tell, is the nation's leading white intellectual, Rachel? How come we can only have one? Some would argue that Gates hasn't written a first-rate scholarly work since 1989. Interesting. Since 1989. CNN gave Gates' accusation against blacks as anti-Semites a worldwide audience. And so when I traveled to Israel for the first time in the year 2000, Israeli intellectuals asked me why American blacks hated Jews so. In print, I challenged Gates' labeling of blacks as a group in my book, Another Day at the Front, because at the time of his op-ed, the Anti-Defamation League issued a report that showed the decline of anti-Semitism among black Americans. I cited the support to Gates. He said that the Times promised that there will be a follow-up op-ed about racism amongst American Jews. They love pushing this narrative. Like black people is just anti-gays, anti-Jews. Like black people is just the only people that be against everybody. And then, I mean, I guess it works because y'all niggas be pissy every time they say something about black people. Now, they push that white hate, you niggas be silenced. They push hate amongst other groups outside of black people, you niggas be silent. Soon as they try to monopolize and politicize off of some black hate, oh baby, now y'all getting motherfucking hate crime bills with black people as the forerunner of your culprits that's afflicted harm against y'all. Nigga, what? Some weirdos. But anyways, let's continue. It never appeared. Barry Glassner was correct when he wrote in his The Culture of Fear that the whole Gates generated black-Jewish feud was hyped. Under Tina Brown's editorship at The New Yorker, Gates was hired to do hatchet jobs on Minister Louis Farrakhan. And the late playwright August Wilson, the piece on Wilson appeared after the debate between theater critic and founder of the American Repertory Theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Robert Brustein, and Wilson about Wilson's proposal, Black Nationalist Theater. Gates took Brustein's side of the argument. Shortly afterward, Brustein and Gates were awarded $1 million grant from the Ford Foundation for the purpose of holding theatrical talented 10th dinner parties at Harvard at a time when regional black theater was heading toward extinction. Tina Brown, a one-time Gates sponsor, is a post-racer like Gates. Like Andrew Sullivan, a Charles Murray supporter, she gets away with the most fatuous comments as a result of Americans being enthralled by a London accent. Oh my gosh. Don't get me started on the stupidity of niggas following people just because of some stupid accent. You put a British accent on anything and you niggas motherfucker and start orgasming. And it's disgusting. You automatically assume that the niggas is intelligent, that they know what they talking about, and what they said talk about is factual, but in fact, them niggas don't know what the freak they be talking about. On the Bill Maher show, she said that issues of race were passé because the country has elected a black president. Niggas was using Barack Obama so hard as, oh my gosh, black people problems is over. Look, black president. The same thing was like, oh, black people don't have issues with police brutality and they're not subjected to extreme poverty. Look, you got wealthy people like LeBron James. When you could physically show me his wealth, I might consider believing it. Don't show me a bunch of endorsements. Don't show me no credit. Don't show me no motherfucking handouts, because y'all know what rich people receive welfare actually in a more gratuitous amount than we motherfucking do. Like the Bible says, the rich has many friends, but the poor has none. But one thing I do know about the rich, like the Bible says, it is easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than for the rich to get into heaven. Rich folk, y'all struggling to get into heaven, baby. So you best believe I don't aspire to be nothing like you. On the Bill Maher show, she said that issues of race were passé because the country has elected a black president. This woman lives in a city from which blacks and Latinos have been ethnically cleansed as a result of the policies of Mayor Giuliani, a man who gets his talking points from the Manhattan Institute. Thousands of black and Hispanic New Yorkers have been stopped and frisked without a peep from Gates and his Harvard circle of post-racers such as Orlando Patterson. And it's interesting that he mentioned stop and frisk, right? Because in a 2017 study of NYPD's data sets in regards to stop and frisk, they have found that despite the fact that black people were disproportionately stopped compared to white people, which means that there were more black people stopped than there were white people, which was not in conjunction with the populations of that location. Let me try that again so it makes sense. Disproportionate stops means that despite black people population in New York City being less than white people, they were stopped in greater numbers than white people. And even though more black people were stopped in greater numbers compared to white people, more illegal contraband and drug paraphernalia was found on the few white people that were stopped compared to black people. So I'll say that again so it makes sense. Even though more black people were stopped and frisked in search of drug paraphernalia and illegal contrabands like firearms, you know, they were stopped in greater numbers compared to white people. With the smaller amount of white people that were stopped, they found more drug paraphernalia and illegal possession of firearms and all types of stuff on the little select white people that they stopped compared to the black people, even though they stopped more black people. So that should be indicative that black people are not only disproportionately stopped, like we are literally motherfreaking like stalked. Like they stop us for just for existing, right? But not only that, but you got people literally getting away with crime, murder, because y'all always looking for black people. But then you got white people who literally be walking around with drug paraphernalia, with illegal firearms, but they probably will never get caught up because policing and they bias tactics, they're not looking for white people. They're looking for black people. But anyways, let's continue. Even though the Bush administration admitted to the existence of racial profiling, yet Gates says that only after his arrest did he understand the extent of racial profiling, a problem for over 200 years. Why hasn't the nation's leading black intellectual been aware of the problem? His exact words following his arrest were, "What it made me realize was how vulnerable all black men are. How vulnerable are all poor people to capricious forces like a rogue policeman." And capricious basically means like spontaneous. It just happens at random. There's no legit system to it. It's like just wild, just on a whim. It's the best way I could break it down at the moment. But anyways, let's continue. Amazing. Should the nation's leading black intellectual be aware of writer Charles Chestnut, who wrote about racial profiling in 1905? The Village Voice recently exposed brutality meted out to black and Hispanic prisoners at New York Rikers Island, a medical experiment that have damaged black children living in the city. Yet Maureen Dowd agrees with Tina Brown, her fellow New Yorker, that because the president and his attorney general are black in terms of racism, it's a mission accomplished. Makes you understand how the German citizens of Munich could go about their business while people were being gassed a few miles away. Yeah, that will happen here. But I mean, we've seen it happen with Hurricane Katrina, where you had black people, mostly disproportionately in numbers, you had black people subjected to some heinous conditions to which the government did little to nothing to even help them. And in the midst of all that turmoil, you had motherfucking firefighters and policemen shooting and picking people off as they was crossing the bridge, trying to get to safety, trying to get to, survival, because they were limited on food. They didn't have access to warmth, shelter, clean water, stuff like that. And they treated them like trash. But then you got these people that be out here talking about the Holocaust. Nigga, you are subjecting people to Holocaust like tendencies every day right here in America, right here in the United States. Why the freak you looking over there in Germany? Nobody gives a damn what happened in Germany and Poland. Y'all keep talking about the Holocaust, and that junk didn't even happen here. Then y'all took on the niggas that was wreaking havoc on the Holocaust survivors. And then y'all was motherfucking giving them asylum, taking them in as refugees, and now these niggas working various positions of power. I mean, they're mad scientists working for the government. Make it make sense, man. Let's continue. Makes you understand how the German citizen of Munich could go about their business while people were being gassed a few miles away. You can almost forgive Marie Antoinette. She was a young woman in her 30s with not a single facelift operation. Was it with this post-race Harvard elite? What is it with this post-race Harvard elite? Excuse me. I got to see Dick Gregory and Mort Saul perform in San Francisco the other night, the last of the great 60 comedians. During his routine, Gregory said that he's sending his grandkids to black historical colleges because even though he lives near Harvard and can afford to send them there, he wouldn't send his dog to Harvard. Maybe he's onto something. When queer power became the vogue, Gates latched onto that movement too in an introduction to an anthology of gay writings. But people want to make it seem like this junk is new. When this book came out, it was about 2009, 2010-ish. So this like pervasiveness of homosexuality ain't no new phenomenon. It's been circulating around here. You just been oblivious to it, I guess. But anyways, during his routine, Gregory said that he sent his grandkids to black historical colleges because even though he lives near Harvard and can afford to send them there, he wouldn't send his dog to Harvard. Maybe he's onto something. When queer power became the vogue, Gates latched onto that movement too. In an introduction to an anthology of gay writings, Gates argued that gay face more discrimination than blacks. Remember when we dealt with that around 2017, 2018? They was even dragging black men for being solely motherfreaking homophobic. It's funny how these things just keep recycling themselves. But let's continue. In an introduction to an anthology of gay writings, Gay argued that gays face more discrimination than blacks, which is disputed even by Charles Blow, the New York Times statistician who, like Harvard's Patterson and Gates, makes tough love to blacks exclusively. Recently, he reported that the typical target of a hate crime is black. but failed to identify the typical perpetrator of a hate crime as a young white male. To say that again, he failed to identify the typical perpetrator of said hate crime as a young white male. Moreover, what's the percentage of gays on death row? Interesting question. Especially when homosexuality isn't something that you can always see outright. Race isn't even something that you can always see outright. Most people wouldn't even suspect me to be homosexual married to a woman unless I told them. Same thing with most people. When they look at me, they assume that I'm just all black because of my phenotype, my aesthetics. I agree with that sentiment. However, I am mixed. My maternal grandmother was a white woman. So white is up in there. On top of the fact that just like the rest of you weirdos, we are all mixed because we have some ancestor that tried to take over our birthright, our inheritance, and they massacred a bunch of our ancestral black males, and they took on the women and they raped them in a sense of forced marriage and forced procreation, so that way they can take over the world. And that's how you end up with all these white people who have black DNA in positions of power, owning and running everything, especially here in the United States. But let's continue, guys. Okay. Moreover, what's the percentage of gays on death row? Good question. The percentage of blacks? Which group is more likely to be redlined by banks? A practice that has cost black billions of dollars in equity. Will Cambridge police have given 2 white gays the problem that they gave Gates? Why no discussion of charges of gay racism made by Marlon Riggs, Barbara Smith, and Audrey Lorde? I'm not really sure how you pronounce her name. How many unarmed white gays have been murdered by the police? Now, how many blacks? Undoubtedly, there are pockets of homophobia amongst blacks, but not as much as that amongst other ethnic communities that I could cite. Yeah, we all can. For white gays, the best thing for blacks would be for gays to get married, and blacks should help in this effort. Otherwise, all of the oxygen on left will continue to be soaked up by this issue. For white gays and lesbians to compare their struggle to that of the civil rights movement is like Gates comparing his situation with that of Will Soyinka's. Moreover, Barbara Smith says that when she tried to join the Gay Millennial March on Washington, the leaders told her to get lost. They said they were intent upon convincing white heterosexual America that we're just like you. It's interesting that he mentioned that because I actually experienced that myself at the hands of a guy who served in the Air Force. This is a white dude. He lives in Rochester. He's actually an officer. I'm drawing a blank on his last name at the moment, but I met this nigga in my electrical course. I had took this electrical course. It was allotted to me for free because of my status as a veteran. And I met him there where we were taking on this, this electrician course and whatnot. And he was telling me how he's gay. Mind you, he's this big buff gay white dude. And I'll never forget this nigga. He tried to juxtapose his struggle as a gay white man to mine as a black woman. It's like, first off, nigga, you are aware that I'm in a relationship with a woman. If you was going to try to show any similarity, you should have just stuck with the gayness, okay? You should have just, I understand, being ostracized because of gay. Because then you would have had some incremental chance to argue what you was going to argue. But it is when this motherfucking cracker took it upon himself to try to show, he literally tried to juxtapose his struggle as a gay white dude to my struggles as a black woman. When I tell y'all I ate that nigga up so quickly, he invited me to a party with a bunch of gay dudes when my chief of police got accepted that was the wrong Singletary, which I thought was even more question. I'm like, nigga, we the only 2 black people here. I'm the only female. I thought you was straight. At least that's how they try to push it. But then that makes sense because where your woman at? And then they say, if you mad old and you ain't got no partner, then you must be gay. And now I see you sitting in the same motherfucking top. hot dog party that I got invited to. It was strange. I left. Dude felt bad, but he invited me to that party, and it just gave. Now, fast forward, because this was what, like 2018, 2019-ish. Now, thinking back, I was like, damn, what the freak did I get invited to? Some Diddy party? Because I did get invited to a motherfucking swingers party when I was in the Marine Corps by this staff sergeant who outranked me. Because at the time, I was a Lance Corporal, E3. This nigga was an E6 staff sergeant, invited me to a swingers club. And it was a beat up, beat face white dude. Just hideous. You know? I ain't with the strange activities anyways. Because God detests sexual immoralities. I ain't with that. And I struggle enough just with being homosexual. Okay. I love my wife. But I'm damn sure not about to get involved in no strange activities. When it's a whole heap of dudes and I'm the only female. Or some swingers party with the world's ugliest white man. And his mystery wife. It's just like, I'm a bit shallow. You see what I'm saying? Look upon me and think logically. Don't look upon me and walk by faith and be like, she gonna want me. No. Because that's not what it is. It's not what it is. But anyways, let's continue. Forgive me, Lord. Didn't mean to make a joke of you. You ain't no joke. Undoubtedly, there are pockets of homophobia around blacks, but not as much as that among other ethnic communities that I could cite. The best thing for blacks would be for gays to get married, and blacks should help in this effort. Otherwise, all of the oxygen on the left will continue to be soaked up by this issue. For white gays and lesbians to compare their struggle to that of the civil rights movements, like Gates comparing his situation with that of Wool Soyinka's. Moreover, Barbara Smith says that when she tried to join the Gay Millennial March in Washington, the leaders told her to get lost. They said they were intent upon convincing white heterosexual America that we're just like you. Will the pre-late 80s Gates be resurrected as a result of what MSNBC and CNN commentator Touré calls Gates' wake-up call? This is the same Touré, a brilliant fiction writer who just about wrote a post-race manifesto for the New York Times Book Review, during which he dismissed an older generation of black activists as a bunch of Jessies. Will Gates let up on what Kofi Natambu, the young editor of the Panopticon Review, calls his opportunism? Will he rethink remarks like the one he made after the election of his friend, the tough love President Barack Obama? Gates said that he doubted that the election would end black substance abuse and unmarried motherhood. Is it possible that things are more complicated than tough love sound bites designed to solicit more patronage? Will he reconsider the post-race neocon line of his blog, TheRoot.com, bankrolled by the Washington Post? Will he invite writers Carl Dix and Askia Touré, who represent other African-American constituencies, as much as he prints the views of far-right Manhattan Institute spokesperson and racial profiling denier, John Wickwater? Will he continue to advertise shoddy blame the victim in black pathology sideshows like CNN's Black in America and The Wire? A lot of people ate up that show. Predictably, CNN's Anderson Cooper turned Gates' controversy into a carnival act. The story was followed by one about Michael Jackson doctors. CNN is making so much money and raising its ratings so rapidly from black pathology stories that it's beginning to give Black Entertainment Network a run for its money, so to speak. Predictably, the segregated media, the spare all whites jury dominating the conversation about race, as usual, spare all the white people, gave the Cambridge cop the benefit of the doubt, and the police unions backed him. Sure did. That's what happens here in Rochester. Every time the police kill somebody, next thing you know, there's a politician getting endorsements off of them, and now they're sitting here telling them, we need to fund the police with more funding, even though it seems like the funding ain't going into nothing but motherfucking killing us. The police unions always backed up their fellow officers, even when they shoot unarmed black suspects in the back, or in the case of Papa Charlie James, an elderly San Francisco black man, while he was lying in bed. They back each other up and testily all of the time. Testily? What is that? Gotta look up that word. I'm gonna come back and look these up. It's Testilei. Or excuse me, I said that wrong. Testi. Lie, if you want to look it up on your own. Will Gates listen to his critics from whom he has been protected by powerful moneyed forces which have given him the ability to make or break academic careers, preside over the decision making of patronage and grant awarding institutions? Houston A. Baker's Jr. portrayal, How Black Intellectuals Have Abandoned the Ideas of the Civil Rights Era, offers mild criticisms of Gates, West, and other black public intellectuals who, according to him, are embraced by virtue of their race-transcendent ideology. His book went from the warehouse to the remainder shelves. The Village Voice promised 2 installments of courageous muckraking pieces about Gates, written by novelist, playwright, and poet Thulani Davis. Part 2 never appeared. Letters challenging Gates by one of Gates' main critics at Harvard, Dr. Martins Kilson, have been censored. Kilson refers to Gates as the master of the intellectual dodge, and even when Professor Melissa Harris Lacewell at the Nation's blog defied the 24-hour news cycle that has depicted Gates, a black nationalist critic, as an overnight black nationalist. Sorry, y'all. Let me dial it back. And even when Professor Melissa Harris Lacewell at the Nation's blog defied the 24-hour news cycle that has depicted Gates, a black nationalist critic, as an overnight black nationalist, she calls him apolitical. She had to pull her punches. As an intellectual, she has more depth than all of the white mainstream and white progressives, media selected leaders of black, intellection, among whom are postmodernist preachers who can spew rhetoric faster than the speed of light. It remains to be seen whether Gates, who calls himself an intellectual entrepreneur, will now use his wake-up call to lead a movement that will challenge racial disparities in the criminal justice system, a system that is rotten to the core, where whites commit the overwhelming majority of the crimes, yes, the mother freak they do, while blacks and Hispanics do the time, yes, the mother freak we do. A prison system where torture and rape are regular occurrences and where in some states the conditions are worse than at Gitmo. California prisons, hospitals are so bad that they have been declared unconstitutional in a form of torture over the objections of Attorney General Jerry Brown and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who leased his face to the rich and was on television the other day talking about how rough they have it. The rich? Please enlighten me on the roughness. A man who is channeling his hero, the late Kurt Waldheim's attitude towards the poor and disabled. Gates can help lead the fight so that there will be mutual respect between law enforcement and minorities, instead of their calling us niggers all the time and being Marvin Gaye's trigger-happy policemen. Not all of them, but quite a few. Or Gates can coast along, continue to maintain that black personal behavior, like not turning off the TV at night, is at the root of barriers facing millions of black Americans. Will he return to the intellectual rigor espoused by his hero W.E.B. Du Bois, or will he continue to act as a sort of black intellectual Charles Van Doren? An entertainer. An insider at PBS told me that the network is demanding that Gates back up his claims about the ancestry of celebrities with more solid proofs. Gates has discussed doing a documentary about racial profiling. I invite him to cover a meeting residents of my Oakland ghetto neighborhood have with the police each month. Most of our problems, incidentally, are caused by the offspring of 2 family households, suburban gun dealers who arm gang leaders. The gang leader on our block isn't black. An absentee landlord who owns a house where crack operations take place. He can bring Bill Cosby with him. He'll find that the problems of inner citizens are more complex than 35-year-old grandmothers living in the projects. Show is. And rappers not pulling up their pants, and that racism remains, in the words of the great novelist John A. Williams, an inexorable force. Highlight. We got to look up that word too. Inexorable force. Finally, in his 2002 Jefferson lecture, delivered at the Library of Congress, Henry Louis Gates Jr., during remarks about the 18th century poet Phillips Wheatley, in which he excoriated the attitudes of her critics in the black arts movement one more time, ended his lecture with, "We can finally say, welcome home, Phyllis. Welcome home." If Gates sees his role as just another tough lover and an intellectual entrepreneur, and takes a role in ending racial traffic and retail profiling and police home invasions, issues that have lingered since even before Chestnut's time, we can say, welcome home, Skip. Welcome home. Damn. I love how Mr. Ishmael Reed be mother freaking clacking that necklace. So give me a chance. Just trying to update something real quick, and then we're going to go into the next chapter. Okay. What was I about to... Okay. All right, y'all. Now... I'm over here recording so I could break this up and post it on my motherfucking, on my videos as well. So that's what I'm doing now. Chapter 10. I keep thinking my freaking keyboard over there, but I moved it. All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Greetings, beautiful people. Good afternoon, good evening. It doesn't matter what time it is. Just know that today is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. Why? Because God is good, and He's good all the time. Yeah, He is. So, yeah, man, we about to motherfucking get into this. So I just want y'all to know that, yeah, we about to do chapter 11. But I just wanted to start with some housekeeping real quick. Make sure y'all tap in, man. Make sure y'all tap in. I got a channel here. Oh, sorry, y'all. Let me shrink this up a little bit. I got a little channel right here. You can find all types of content. Y'all can see. You can find content that it could be viewed as controversial, hurts your feelings, all types of stuff. I talk about any and everything. Stuff that you probably wouldn't find, you know, in the mainstream, especially not something that's like blowing up or something like that. Because at the end of the day, people just, they don't give a damn. You know, some people is with the educational information and some people is like, I'm good. Leave me with the entertainment and stuff. So y'all can come here, but I do interviews mostly, but well, not mostly. I've been getting into interviewing people, but at the end of the day, it's mostly just me talking about discussions that I don't talk on this page right here. Hold on, because this over here just not acting right. There we go. Obdurately T. So Obdurately T, this is my channel where I just do mad random stuff. Like I have any and everything posted here. You could see basketball. You could see me planting stuff. Like I motherfucking, you see what I'm saying? Just be out here doing stuff. You can see all types of content on here. I'm sorry to drag it out, but I just want to show you. I can find all types of content here. Discussions, but discussions that I don't normally talk, you know. But and then you can also motherfucking tap in with my other channel, Tier the Athlete, which is not even popping up. Forgive me, y'all. Let me get my life together. Bam. Tier the Athlete channel. And y'all, this is where I'm gonna be posting all my athletic bouts, so y'all can catch it here. Even like some gun shooting and stuff like that. I mean, I think the sound is down. But yeah, just to give you something, a little housekeeping, you know. Tier the Athlete is a channel where I'll be posting my athletic bouts, and then the antithetical antagonist. The antithetical antagonist. You can find me talking about all types of discussions, interviews, and whatnot. But without further ado, let's get back into it. Chapter 11. We getting into it, man. We almost done, and then we moving on. Chapter 11. Why the media and its general public bought Sergeant Crowley's lie. Let's all have a beer. Okay, let me see how many pages I got, because I have not eaten my breakfast yet, and a sister is hungry. Okay, yeah, sister hungry, but we gonna get through this, and then I'm gonna go downstairs and eat, and then y'all make sure y'all come back, those that engage with sports content, because I'm gonna get into some TNC. They got an event coming up tomorrow, so I'm gonna go live on that. But let me get into this book, because I know many of y'all are here for that. So let's go. Chapter 11. It's not surprising that some whites who monopolize the means of expression both electronically and in print, mainstream and progressive, will automatically take Sergeant James M. Crowley's word against Henry Louis Gates Jr., even though Crowley's account of the Gates arrest has been disputed by both Gates and Lucia Whalen, the woman of 911. Hold on. I just got a notification. All right, y'all. Sorry about that. They also disapprove of President Obama calling the action stupid. According to a CNN poll, 59% of blacks believe that Officer Crowley acted stupidly. 29% of whites. So 59% black people, 29% white people. Okay? Interesting. They also, Whalen said nothing about two black men with backpacks. During her 911 call, as noted by the New York Times, the day after two of its reporters embraced Crowley's version of the incident, she never used the word black. Crowley's invisible two black men with backpacks came from the same part of the American imagination as Susan Smith's black man wearing a knitted cap, Bonnie Smith invisible carjacking black man, and Charles Stewart's invisible black male murderers. It's the same thing when random shootings and killings happen out in mostly metropolitan urban communities, and the first thing niggas say is the perpetrator black, even though the perpetrator is nowhere to be found. Niggas ain't even got somebody in custody, you know what I'm saying? But they be like, it's black. Some of y'all really need to check your mind. You gotta think, why my brain automatically goes to this? Let's continue. The same place as Barack Obama's invisible Kenyan birth certificate. That certificate show is invisible. A hoax accepted by the Gothic South, where the uniform of its homegrown terrorist movement is that of Casper, the friendly ghost. Even 12-year-old Christopher Pittman go into the act. After blowing his grandparents to kingdom come with a shotgun, young Pittman blamed the murders on an invisible, over 6 feet tall black man. Remember how we talked about in 2017, New York City released report an investigation that they did on NYPD stop and frisk, and they found that even though black people are disproportionately stopped and frisked by NYPD, meaning that despite the population of NYPD being about 40% black, 50% white, majority black people was stopped. And despite mostly black people being stopped and searched for drug paraphernalia and illegal weapons, contraband, they found more drug paraphernalia and illegal contraband on the tiny bit of white people that they stopped and frisked in comparison to black people. So make it make sense. If black people are so inherently criminal and all this other stuff, we just walking around with drug paraphernalia and unlawful firearms and all this weirdo stuff. Because me personally, I don't feel there's no such thing as unlawful firearms. Nigga, I have the right to bear arms, whether you like it or not. And me requiring me to motherfucking get a pistol permit is unconstitutional. But y'all niggas want to make $1. But let me get off of that. But it's the fact. This ain't no new phenomenon. Here in Rochester last year, we had a mass shooting at Maplewood Park where 2 young black women were shot up. And this is a common motif that I see in communities where black people, they hang out in large numbers. They had a cookout, a party, a house party or something. Everybody chilling. And next thing you know, you got some random driving down the street shooting them up. The culprit was never found, but everybody and their mama was talking about black people, black people, black people. They even took the 1 or 2 guys that pulled out their firearms in self-defense of the nigga shooting at them at the park. And they posterized these 2 black men as the potential shooters of this mass shooting, even though these niggas was pointing a gun in the opposite direction as where the people were getting motherfucking shot at. Then there's footage circulating around on people's Facebooks that shows a white arm coming out the motherfucking window shooting at people, but niggas was still sitting here talking about it's somebody black. But then they sit here and say racism don't exist. My retard. Help me understand this, because my brain don't comprehend retard, okay? If a person how can you say a community, a society is not racist when the motherfucking data shows that white people walk around with illegal possession of firearms? They walk around with drug paraphernalia. I mean, I got accused of being a drug dealer because I was smoking weed in New York State in 2018 when it was illegal. No, nigga, I am just a motherfucking weed smoker who is currently violating the law on smoking weed. If anything, there's no law that says I can't smoke weed, but there's a law that motherfucking prohibits my possession of this little old substance. But there's no law against me smoking. But I got accused of being a motherfucking drug dealer, even though statistics shows that white people, especially white people in affluent neighborhoods, the same neighborhoods that niggas think they all safe and stuff at, yeah, they're them same white people that be on drugs in galore. Go to your nearest white community. You go to your nearest affluent community. Nigga, it don't even matter where the freak you go. You can go to White Trash Central. You can go to motherfucking Karen's Double Chin, community. It don't matter where the freak you go. You gonna have more white people doing drugs, selling drugs than black people. But yet people in a broken mentality associate all this criminal activity with black people like we the only ones doing it. Nigga, the data don't even reflect what the freak y'all be saying. And don't get me started on you motherfucking simpletons that love to talk about per capita. Because when I ask you niggas how they even came up with, when I even asked them how did they come with the motherfucker per capita, how did they measure it? What was the methodology behind it? What did they do to get this number? You niggas can't even articulate that, but y'all love telling me about motherfucking crime per capita, this per capita. And it's always when it's black people involved. Why the freak there ain't no per capita with you white folk? It's like how y'all stupidly think that black people motherfucking benefit more on affirmative action. First off, is more white people benefiting on affirmative action than it is black people. And in fact, it's more wealthy people benefiting from affirmative action than it is black people. I got a book right here to prove it. It's just something interesting about when you just crack open a motherfucking book. You just learn a thing or two. It's funny how life works like that. Thomas Sowell, the same nigga that motherfucking Republicans be trying to use as their poster boy to be like, oh, he's always rendering tough love to you black people. He's always telling you about yourself. You need to get yourself together. Affirmative action is hurting you. Yet this nigga done said it himself. Affirmative action is not even synonymous with America. Affirmative action is happening in places like Sri Lanka, Great Britain, motherfucking Malaysia. And it don't matter where the freak you go. They created for poor people, and then there's a bunch of rich people benefiting off of it. You know what else? People be thinking that it's just with black people. Motherfucking welfare. You idiots think that black people make up the majority on welfare. How? That don't even reflect the motherfucking census. See, because I love to educate a nigga. I know I'm holding y'all up. And I'm sorry for showing y'all me, because I'm trying to make sure that I was squared away. But let me show y'all something. They be sitting here acting like. I gotta stay focused. I didn't even get through the first page, y'all. Let me bring it back. I want to show you, but I'm gonna hold it because I feel like it's gonna come back up. F it. Let me show y'all. Okay. Education time. Let me show you the U.S. population by race. Because some of y'all sucked in academia, and it's evident. It's very, very evident. Okay? Look at this. This is the U.S. Census. Now, I'm going to put this in the motherfucking... I'm going to put it in there so y'all can see it. Okay? Go to the description so you could click this bad boy your motherfucking self. Okay? My bad, y'all. U.S. Census. Oops. All right. Now it's there for you. You can see it for your motherfucking self. Look at this. This is the U.S. population. 342 million people live in this raggedy country. Now let me show y'all by race. U.S. population. White. Oh, would you look at that? You know, I've always said AI overview isn't accurate. So we'll just quick facts. We'll go to the census. People, let's see. There's 341 million in the United States of America. Where's the white people at? White people alone. Look at that. Look at that, guys. Do I need a zoom for you? Excuse me. Do I need a zoom for you? Look at that. Look at that, baby. 72.3% of 341.7 million people in the United States are white. me out the way. Where I'm going to be at, Lord? Put me somewhere where I ain't in the way. Okay. Now, let me, oh, my button don't work. Y'all, I got a new keyboard. I ain't even set up my little buttons. Let me get my calculator. Because just for the niggas that don't know how to do some math, okay? We'll put it right here. Can y'all see this? Yeah, you can see this. This is not hindering you too bad. Okay. Let me show you. Let me show you niggas something. Okay? We're not even going to put all these numbers in here because, matter of fact, we just going to, I ain't even going to do y'all like that. We going to put all the numbers in there. Just so you niggas could see. When they be sitting here talking about, it's black people. It's not, niggas. All right. How many people in the United States of America? Let's say 3, 4, 1, 7, 8. Oh, 7, 9, 8. 7, 8, 4, 8, 5, 7. And then how many of them are white? White alone, 72.3. So what do we do, guys? How do you get the percentage of this number? For those that aren't savvy with math, I got you. You multiply, bam, this number by this number. So that is 72.3. Oh, wait. Did I do it right? Yeah. 24 million people. Bro, I'm tripping. Give me a second. Because 10%, I did the number wrong. Duh. Let me see. 72 divided by 100. What's that percentage? I'm drawing a blank, y'all. This the number I was supposed to. Oh, let me copy. Okay. Let's try this again. 3, 4, 1, 7, 8, 4, 8, 5, 7. This is why I was going to save it to the end because I'd be having to get my mind right. I'd be ready to talk, but then I got to switch to motherfucking math. Oh my gosh, bro. What was the number I said? 72.3 divided by 100. 0.723. All right. 0.723. Let's remember that, Jesus. 0.723. 0.723. 0.723. 0.723. 0.723. 0.723. 723. There we go. Out of 341 million people in the United States of America, 72.3% are white. You multiply 72.3% by 341 million. That gives you this. 247.1 million white people that are in the United States. Now, how can I save this? We're gonna leave that there, y'all. We're gonna leave that there. Now, let's do the math for white people. I need to write this down because it's gonna disappear as soon as I start whipping out these numbers. Let me write this down. 247 110 051.611. Okay. Now let's do the math for black people. How many people are in the United States, Jesus? 341 78 84 857. They said black people make up about 14% or some trap. Let's see if it's still there. Black alone. Oh my gosh, we went down from 14% to 3.5%. I'm starting to think that some of us are being misclassified. You know, some of our lighter-skinned people being classified as white. But anyways, 13.5%. Y'all see it. Black alone, 13.5. Out of 341,784,000 people, roughly, only 13.5 of us are black. All right, where my calculator went, Jesus? Now we're going to multiply 13.5. That should be 0.35, right? Yeah. All right, Jesus. 46 million people. 46.1 million black people live in the United States of America. 46.1. Now, I don't know if y'all can see my little paper. This is how many white people live in the United States. And this is how many black people live in the United States. Now, even if, because you got to remember, they said 90% of the United States population is poor. 90%. So of that 90%, I think it's safe to say that at least about, it got to be at least about 40% of them are on welfare, right? That's including all groups of people. So if all these niggas are poor, a good portion of them got to be on some type of welfare, government assistance, right? That means there's a percentage of each group of people, because 90% of the black population is poor, 90% of the white population is poor, 90% of the Asian population is poor, 90%. You see where this is going, right? Now let me write this down. We got white people. Where's my pencil? Where's my pencil, Jesus? Did I put it back? Yes, I did. White people. Black. We're going to write this number down because I'm going to show y'all. They said 90% of groups of people poor. 4614. I should pull out my little Google Sheets. Actually, I'm going to do that so y'all could see this. Oh no, it's Google Docs, duh. Da da da. Da 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 da. I know I'm running out of storage. I'm always running out of storage. All right. We're going to make this mad big. White people. What's that number, Jesus? 247 110 051.611. Black people. Oh 610 955.61. I gotta get going, man. I gotta read the book, but I'm gonna read it. Look at this. Now y'all know we did the math together, guys. Remember my calculator? This is why I'm trying to write it down so you guys can see it. You see? I didn't just. Damn, I did make up the last numbers. I didn't just make this up. Should I check this? I think y'all got me though, right? We'll do it just in case, because I don't want to steer y'all wrong. What we said? Sir. Time. Oh no, we don't want that. Times I meant. 0.723. Okay, that number is accurate. All right, we good. Okay, so remember, 90% of the population is poor. 90. Where's my percent sign? Percent. Po. Pow. So let's do the math. You understand what I'm saying? 90% of all these people poor. And then there's a percentage of these poor people that is on welfare. We can even say it's 1%. But let me show y'all the math. Because niggas be saying black people is on all this welfare and stuff in higher numbers than everybody else. And it's like, nigga, that is physically impossible. It doesn't even reflect the motherfucking numbers that y'all present in your own little data sets. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? And if you ever want to know how they come with, they get the math done, how they the methodology for this census is all at the bottom. See, methodology differences, blah, 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 blah. They have all that at the bottom. But let's get over here. So 90% of the population is poor, right? So that means, right, times 90%. Okay? That's going to equal, let's pull out our handy dandy calculator because we're going to get back into reading because I need to go eat. So we're going to do a times a point, a 9, a 0, Jesus. Wow, that's a pretty large number. Dude, I'm trying to copy and paste. We're trying to speed this process up. Get your booty on here. Look at that. I'll shrink you a little bit so you can be on the same line. Okay. This is how many people are considered poor. And when I say poor, I'm talking about under the poverty line. These niggas is under the poverty line, slightly above the poverty line, but they poor. Okay, they're poor. Right? Now, black people. We'll put you by yourself, black people. Because we're always by ourselves, you know what I'm saying? Now, we're going to times 90%. And what do we get, Jesus? Pull out our handy dandy calculator. Oh, excuse me. I'm over here burping these empty burps because I'm hungry. That's how y'all know I love y'all. I'm sitting here at, what time is it? Like 10 o'clock? It feels like 10 o'clock. Hungry as hell. Times 90%, Jesus. Whoa. No. Highlight the whole motherfucking thing. There you go. Out of all these black people, these are all the poor ones. That means there's about, and this is being generous, about 4 million black people that's not poor. Here, you've got about, what, 25 million white people that's not poor. But 90% of their population, poor. Now, I don't know the percentage. I mean, I could Google, but I don't really feel, I'll just do, I'll do it. Percentage of U.S. population on welfare. I feel like I have to really search for this number. Because I told you I don't really be trusting AI overviews because they just compile information. Look how they compile it. Damn, they didn't even show where they pulled the information from. Usually you click that little button and they show you all the little the sources that they use that they compile the information to give you this. But so it says about 21% of all Americans. All Americans, right? So we're just going to be generous. If we say 1% of each group of people is on welfare, which is probably not that at all. It's probably maybe slightly more. It could be slightly less. But we're going to say 1% just for poops and giggles and visual purposes, right? So if we take 1% of this poor population, this will give us the amount of people that is on welfare, right? Times 1%. Now, for those who don't know what 1% is supposed to look like, it's this. That's 1%. If you don't believe me, I'll show you. Because I know math be putting some people in the chokehold. It puts me in a chokehold every now and then. I've actually was pretty good at math in grade school. Pretty good. B+ student. But it's one of them things, like if you don't use it that often, it gets a little shaky. What was I doing? Oh, 1, I don't even need that. 1 divided by 100. See? 1%. So just in case you're trying to figure out percentages, you want to be like, what's the percent on that? This is how you do it. Divided by 100. Because remember, 100% is the total. Whatever you're trying to find, divide that by 100. And that gives it. So 1%, right? So that's the math we're going to put in this calculator. Black people. What we got? 4, 1, 526 860.1255. Let me show you, make sure everything's squared away. 41 526 860.125 or 55. Okay, then we times that by 0.01. What we get, Jesus? Oh, would you look at that? Less than 500,000 people that will be estimated on welfare. And this is if 1% of every group is on welfare. We got less than. Let me highlight that so we can always come back. Which one is the highlight? I think you the highlight, ain't it? No, you're not the highlight. Oh, yeah, you are. All right. Then we come over here. Do the same thing. Pull out our handy dandy calculator. 222-399-406.4499. Damn, my numbers got jacked up. What the freak happened? 222-399-406.4499. 222-399-406.4499. Okay. Now multiply by 1%. Oh my gosh. We're in the millions. We're in the millions, guys. White people, we're in the millions. Black people, we took 1% of our population and we were barely at 1 million. White people, look at this number. Let me show you. So this is why I be telling people, you got to educate yourself a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You got to educate yourself a little bit. Because it's asinine for people to think that black people make up the majority on welfare, make up the majority utilizing affirmative action, make up the majority doing any and everything. You see what I'm saying? Whoa. So look at this. Now, this is my hypothetical. This is my reasonable hypothetical because you got to remember 1% ain't accurate. It said 21% of the entire American population is on welfare. So me saying 1% of every group of people is being very generous. So if 1% of white people were on welfare, remember, let me show y'all. This is the total population. I'll zoom on it for you. You see what I'm saying? Zoom accurately, bro. Okay, you don't want to zoom accurately. It's all right. We'll just focus here, guys. Focus right here. Population estimate. And mind you, this number is not accurate because there's a lot of people who do not even answer census people knocking on the door. But anyways, out of 341.7 million people living in the United States, 72.3% are white. 72.3% of 341 million gave us this. This is how many white people are in the United States. Now, I don't know why they didn't show the numbers on here. They want to show percentages. Nah, nigga, show me that number. 70. Show me that number. They got it for veterans, though. Veterans, how many veterans in here? How many white people, bro? You don't show them numbers because them numbers is weird. But anyways, white people make up, remember, 72.3% of the U.S. population. That gives us this number right here. When you multiply 0.723 times 341.7 million, you get this number right here. Now, they said about 90% of the United States population is poor. So if we said we took 90% of this number, that gave us this number. This is supposed to be roughly about the number of people that are white in the United States who are poor. So if they are poor, and it's roughly about 1% of them on welfare, that's about 2 million white people on welfare. Now we look at black people. Out of 341 million people in the United States, only 13.5% of them are black. That's this number right here. And of this number right here, you see what I'm saying? At least 90% of them are poor. So that gives us this number right here of how many poor black people do live in the United States. And if 1% of the poor population was on welfare, we have less than 1 million people on welfare compared to about 2 million people, white people, on welfare. So I say all that to say, it's pretty asinine for people to be out here saying that black people make up the majority that is on welfare or utilizing affirmative action or anything of the sort, because it's just not true. But anyways, let's get back into this book. Now that there are fears of black and brown uprising, fears stoked by Rupert Murdoch and CNN's, oh, it's 11:22. Okay. But CNN's Jonathan Klein for ratings, the country is revisiting Cotton Mather, the real founding father who wrote a book about his personal hallucinations called The Wonders of the Invisible World, being on an account of the trials of several witches lately executed in New England. That's a long title. The Wonders of the Invisible World, being an account of the trials of several witches lately executed in New England. His Salem woods were full of invisible black men. He was one of those nuts who sparked the witch hysteria, which has become the Obama hysteria, inflamed by Klein and Murdoch, who go after eyeballs like vampires go after an exposed neck. Birthers, the creator of Obama as the Joker, teabaggers, and assorted anti-Obama nuts are always welcome at birther-loving CNN, MSNBC, and Fox. I don't know what all of this is leading up to, but I hope that members of President Obama's Secret Service detail have been rigorously screened. Abraham Bolden, author of The Echo from Dealey Plaza, writes about the racist attitudes of the men who guarded JFK. One of them said that he'd never take a bullet for a nigger lover. One of those who is under the post-race spell is Stuart Taylor, senior columnist for National Journal. Appearing on the August 3rd edition of the Washington Journal, Taylor said that the Gates arrest had nothing to do with race. When a black caller from Michigan accused Crowley of lying, Taylor said that there was no proof of a significant misstatement by Officer Crowley. He argued that we've entered a post-race period because of Obama's election and that there was not a single example of discrimination against Obama in his entire life, even though Obama says that he's experienced racial profiling while serving in the Illinois legislature. Taylor has also denied the existence of racial profiling, saying that a lot of white people get treated worse by the police. Daniel Prude, George Floyd. I mean, they've been saying this over and over and over as a way to justify black murder. Taylor also said that whites don't crack. When studies I've read indicate that whites consume most, or don't crack. Taylor also said that whites don't do crack when studies I've read indicate that whites consume most of the crack. They just don't get sentenced for its possession and sale. Crack penalties appear to hit minorities harder, was the headline of a Los Angeles Times story published in May 1935. Despite evidence that large numbers of whites use and sell crack cocaine, federal law enforcement in Southern California has waged its war against crack almost exclusively in minority neighborhoods, exposing black and Latino offenders to the toughest drug penalties in the nation. Ain't that what I thought? I got accused of motherfucking selling drugs and all I did was smoke. Some of them people be nuts cases. Yet Taylor attributed the obstacles facing black Americans to their personal behavior, which has been Skip Gates' lineup to now, like poor work habits, which makes you wonder how over 80% of blacks managed to hold down jobs, given Stewart's error-filled interview. Who is he to complain about work or poor work habits? Taylor's main point was that racial preferences pervade American society when a number of studies, including one from the Department of Labor, describe affirmative action as benefiting white women the most. Let's continue. Taylor was interviewed by a white woman, Libby Casey, who neglected to point this out. He said that a disproportionate number of blacks are incarcerated because they commit most of the crimes. Another lie. They just get arrested more often. 75% of blacks and Hispanics wouldn't be in jail if they were white. And lies coming from Taylor and his colleague at the National Journal, Ron Brownstein, contributed to the climate that sends them there. Brownstein and Taylor make a living by ratcheting up white resentment against blacks. That's what Candace Owens did before she did her flip after she was fired from the Daily Wire. But the rest of them does that too. Motherfreaking Stephen Crowley, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh. The Hodge twins was good on that, being token black niggas. Let's continue. Then it said that Ron Brownstein contribute to the climate that sends them there. Brownstein and Taylor make a living by ratcheting up white resentment against blacks, a job so easy that you can do it from the beach. All that is required is a laptop. Bill Cosby is providing these opportunities with ammunition through his poor command of the facts. I love the guy. I will never forget the time when he flew me up to Harrah's and provided me with accommodations that included a chef and introduced me to Ray Charles, but his tough love lectures are shaky. Instead of lecturing 35-year-old grandmothers living in the projects, wealthy black Americans like Bill Cosby and Henry Louis Gates Jr., who view the underclass from first-class seats, should establish a black version of the Anti-Defamation League that would challenge 24/7 false reports about minorities who don't have the media power to fight back. I'd make a contribution, and I know a number of people who do the same. For its part, the Anti-Defamation League exposes anti-Semites who are racist as well, some of them armed with deadly weapons. Letters to the editor, like the one that NAACP President Julian Bond wrote to the New York Times, reminding them that affirmative action is preferential towards white women, don't seem to have an impact. Bond disputed the paper's recent right-wing hire op-ed writer Roush Dothot, who, like a reporter for the Times, believes that affirmative action is primarily race conscious. Sorry, y'all, for rubbing this all up on the microphone. Stuart Taylor's responses lack the facts, yet he warned Gates that he should be careful about what he says. The fact that men of Taylor's background and prejudices dominate the discussion of race in the United States is just another bill that blacks have to pay. And you'd think that media, both mainstream and progressive, would host white writers who weren't so much in denial about race. Writers like Leo Litwack, David Zirin, James Lowen, Russell Banks, Tim Wise, and Dalton Conley, and Jack Foley, an Irish American who's not trying to impress WASPs by playing Handel on the harpsichord. And WASP is, I guess, a derogatory term for Italians, people without papers. With his lies, Sergeant Crowley not only made fools of Stuart Taylor, Huffington Post commentators Robert Wells and Frank Serpico, who accepted his false report, but most depressing, Greg Palast, a leader in the fight against the caging of voters. Moreover, Crowley, who after the Bear Summit seemed grateful that things didn't have to get physical with Gates, a 58-year-old man who walks with a cane. The American media have sided with the police most of the time, even when the police led the invasions of black neighborhoods where the inhabitants were massacred, or when they simply stood by and watched, something that the Cambridge and Boston police didn't learn in school, nor did the whites, the media, general public, who when polled took Crowley's word over Gates. The Newsom in Washington, D.C. should have a Hall of Fame, which would display the headlines of newspaper who inflammatory reporting led to race riots. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921, New Orleans, 1900, etc. Showman Lou Dobbs praised Sergeant Leon Lashley, the black policeman who backed Crowley as some kind of martyr to political correctness, without mentioning that the officer said that he would have handled the situation differently. Can you blame the guy? He has to work with people like Justin Barrett, the Boston cop who called Gates a banana-eating jungle bunny, and threatened that if Gates had given him some belligerent non-compliance, he would have sprayed him in the face with OC pepper spray. Officer Barrett is suing the city of Boston because in the view of him and his lawyer, he was fired unjustly by Boston's mayor. His suit lists the damage that the mayor has caused: pain and suffering, mental anguish, emotional distress, post-traumatic stress, sleeplessness, indignities, and embarrassment, degradation, injury to reputation, and restriction on his personal freedom. His lawyer, Pete Morano, said that Barrett didn't mean to characterize Gates as a banana-eating jungle monkey, but only to characterize Gates' behavior. Appearing on the Larry King Show, however, Barrett said that he didn't know what made him say that, a statement which just about pleads for a new branch of psychiatry, or at least of an exorcism. His pathetic attempt at wit is the kind of thing that black policemen have had to deal with for decades. Racist graffiti posted on bulletin boards, on emails overheard on police radios, pasted on their lockers. Lou Dobbs wasn't the only commentator cherry-picking the information from the Gates-Crowley encounter. Ed Schultz, a progressive, didn't even mention Ms. Whalen's disputing of Officer Crowley's report. He supported the media line that both Gates and Crowley overreacted, with Gates doing the most overreacting. The typical response by the talking heads, even the token progressive, took Sergeant Crowley's word over that of a black professor and a white woman. In a show of ethnic solidarity with Crowley, the Morning Joe show's Mike Barnacle said that the next time Gates needed a policeman, he should call the Harvard Lounge, a remark that drew round-the-clock thigh-slapping and yucks from his colleagues. In other words, blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans should accept any action from the police when it violates their rights, because they, the taxpayers who pay their salaries, might need them in the future. Chris Matthews, another member of MSNBC's, and that's exactly how police be treating you. They treat you so poorly and just be like, well, you better deal with this, because if you motherfucking complain, sue me, anything of the sort, next time you call 911, niggas, we ain't showing up to help you. Weirdos. Chris Matthews, another member of MSNBC's Irish American Mafia, nominated Crowley for governor of Massachusetts after Crowley's arrogant and unremarkable press conference. If a poll were conducted in Ireland, Gates' version of events would probably prevail over Crowley's. An on-camera left-wing Irish American is as rare as a left-wing African American or Hispanic. Solange Joan Walsh won't do. She agreed with the Albany jury that acquitted the police who murdered Amadou Diallo, who didn't have a PhD. Like Maureen Daw, Joan Walsh has cops in her family. If CNN and MSNBC were interested in recruiting some left-wing Irish commentators, they might contact the newspaper Irish Echo, which they ought to read. And I've always been a stickler of that. It's like, how do you expect people to efficiently, unbiasedly do their job when there's so much conflict of interest, right? It's like going before the judge for a criminal matter and you have a bench trial, right? And you expect legitimate, uncorrupt dealings from the judge, even though his whole job is to basically enforce the law, which you've been accused of breaking. So he's, or her, is incentivized to convict you, which is why I encourage people to never take a bench trial. Get you a trial by jury. Okay? You got a greater chance with a jury trial. But it's like expecting a judge to judge your situation fairly when the judge goes shoot pool and he motherfucking plays golf with the prosecutor that's accusing you, with your public defender. These niggas commute and shop and live amongst the same communities that we don't participate in, but we expect them to do their jobs neutral, unbiasedly. You see what I'm saying? And impartially. Asinine, if you ask me. Curses any man who puts his trust in man. Humans are fallible. And if you think that a human can compartmentalize, their implicit biases when they dealing with you, baby, you are a fool. You a fool. Let's continue. Of course, if Celtic African-American President Obama shows signs of solidarity with the brothers and sisters like that shown toward Crawley by Scarborough, Matthews, Barnacle, and Joe Queenan, appearing on the Bill Maher show, he'd be dismissed as an angry black chauvinist. Black and brown cable faces are also drawn from the political right. Yes, they are. The lone progressive CNN Hispanic contributor is often outnumbered 3-1. The leaders of CNN's Hispanic right is Cuban-American Rick Sanchez, who ran down a homeless man named Jeffrey Schmuznik after imbibing a few cocktails at a Dolphins game. Imbibing. Mr. Ishmael Reed, you have such an interesting lexicon. Imbibing. I have never heard nor seen that word. Imbibing. I'm going to look that up later. One of the few Hispanic syndicated columnists in Ruben Navarrete Jr., whose assignment, like the three at CNN, is to take to the brothers and sisters from time to time, Leslie Sanchez, a Republican spokesperson, appears on both MSNBC and CNN. I be telling people that y'all can't trust the opposition that y'all be seeing on television and social media, Facebook, YouTube, Candace Owens. Them niggas is controlled opposition. It's a facade, okay? Like my mama been telling me since I was little, the world is just a huge stage. Everything pertaining to this world is entertainment driven. Let's continue. Where did I leave at, Daddy? For example, Navarrete, accepting Crowley's account, blamed the whole incident on Gates not being deferential to the cop. Maybe Gates should have said something like, "Boss man, police, I'm sorry for being in my own house," followed by an offer to shine his shoes. I reminded Navarrete that Crawley lied. He answered with a sarcastic note. Navarrete is the writer who said that he was okay with the New York Post cartoon in which President Obama was depicted as a dead chimp slain by the police. Even Rupert Murdoch, the closest media owner we're likely to get to the Goebbels, apologized for that one. The blackface at time is Ramesh Ponnuru, perhaps a reward for his taking the flak at the National Review when Asian American groups protested a cartoon which they found offensive. Ramesh Ponnuru defended the cartoon. One of the editors at the time told the protesters that he will not kowtow to their demands. Gates might have raised his voice, he might have yelled, but there was no evidence that he was belligerent. In the words of blogger and yoga instructor Robin Wells, or cantankerous, the word used by sportscaster Stephen A. Smith, who also blamed the incident on Gates. Oh my gosh, Stephen A. Smith been coon tapping for over 2 decades now. Why would Miss Wells take the word of Officer Crawley over that of her colleague in the sisterhood, Lucia Whalen? Does Ariana Huffington agree with Miss Wells? The fact that black commentators also accepted the officer's testimony show the compromises that some blacks have to make in order to keep their jobs in an industry. Sounds just like the job force here with us little people, where you got niggas taking nonsense just to keep a job, and then ultimately they end up turning around and firing you anyways. So you just took a mouthful of semen, full blast, for no reason. Let's continue. Oh, sure, the reporters might be liberal, but they don't run Clear Channel, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and McClatchy. Before interrogation, black newspapers were so powerful and independent that J. Edgar Hoover wanted to charge them with sedition, according to A Question of Sedition by Patrick Washburn. He was overruled by Franklin Roosevelt's Attorney General Francis Biddle. Now, I didn't know that. Let me highlight that. I did not know that nickel, J. Edgar Hoover, wanted to charge black newspapers with sedition, according to A Question of Sedition by Patrick Washburn. I'm going to come back to this. Mother freaking make a mental note, y'all. I'm going to label it Black Sedition. All right. Let's continue. He was overruled by Franklin Roosevelt's Attorney General Francis Biddle. Black journalism was weakened when some of the more talented journalists got jobs with mainstream newspapers where they have no motherfucking power. While Pat Buchanan and Joe Scarborough can go apoplectic anytime they feel like it, the few blacks on camera have to keep their cool so as to not appear as angry. Oh, a word that they love throwing around with black people is you volatile. You're capricious. Even so, Eugene Washington, who speaks in almost a whisper, just about called Crowley a liar when he said that he didn't believe that Gates made a slur about the officer's mother. Knowing Gates, I don't either. But then Washington caught himself by adding that he doesn't know whether a white Harvard professor would have received the same treatment. He called that hypothetical, like the theory of gravity. Even tough lover Bob Herbert, who, like some other token black writers, got angry over the way Gates was treated. Herbert had received a talented 10th award from Gates. Herbert blames society failings on rap music and says awful things about Michael Jackson, whose contributions to charities were in the millions. But his opinion isn't shared by the Times sales department, which devotes whole sections to Jackson and the rappers in an effort to woo young readers. He should go to the Times advertising department and threaten to quit if they don't cut it. Cut it out. Ma'am, get your room. My dog's over here pressing me. Anyways, MSNBC's Jonathan Capehart, a real mousy fellow, said that Gates had grown up in Jim Crow era and that accounted for his losing his cool again. Swallowing Crowley's account of the counter, Capehart said that he's never had an unpleasant experience with the police. He said that Gates' response was generational, a rumor started by a white New York Times magazine writer who wrote about a divide between Jesse Jackson and Barack Obama's generation on racial issues, even though Obama has been a victim of racial profiling. The writer knows as much about black history and culture as one of the scrub jays in my backyard. Well, a lot of people from Capehart's generation have had ugly encounters with the police, some of them lethal. On the phone the other day, Toni Morris's son Harold, the Princeton architect, was responding to my counterpunch piece, told me about his encounter. The police in the front yard of his home beat up Adam Kennedy, son of the great playwright Adrienne Kennedy. His mother and he wrote a play about the beating called Sleep Deprivation Chamber. I was struck by a cop and called a nigger in the presence of black cops after he overheard me telling a friend that he was taking a bribe. He charged me with disorderly conduct and came to my cell that night at the Tombs. Unlike the maniac I'd encountered earlier that day, he said in a very calm voice that if I pled guilty, I'd only have to spend the weekend in Rikers Island, a New York prison. I told him no deal and got a lawyer and wondered how poor and Hispanic and black men without resources respond to such great bargains. They take the guilty plea. That's why over 90% of prosecutors' conviction rates are at that motherfucking high because of guilty pleas. Less than 2% of cases that actually goes to trial are actually found guilty by law. Over 90% of them are established by guilty pleas. So where he chose not to and was like, I'm getting a lawyer, others have just said, I'll plead guilty so they can get out that weekend, make it to work, don't lose their job, tend to their families. It's XYZ. Like Sergeant Crowley, the officer lied on his police report, and most black men would agree with journalist Jack White, and the police lie all the time. They lied on mine. Even the most recent arrest I had, they lied on mine, talking about something I was motherfreaking obstructing government administration, which here in New York, you have to physically intercede, right? Amongst other things, they said I was like impeding traffic, holding up traffic and stuff. And everything was documented. They looked at cameras and stuff, and they come to find out that the police lied on their police report. It's very common for them to lie. In fact, I got 3 active civil suits against Rochester Police Department, to which not only did they arrest me, subjected me to violence, but they lied. And when I say arrested me, they arrested me unlawfully. and subjected me to violence and lied. It's very common. But anyways, there is no evidence that Gates overreacted, in the words of President Obama, and Colin Powell, a man who was part of an administration guilty of perhaps one of the most colossal overreactions in history. To his credit, Tim Wise, author of White Like Me, Reflections on Race from a Privileged Son, was one of the first commentators to comment on the discrepancies in Crowley's report. The dynamic young black intellectual Joseph Anderson actually looked up the criteria for disorderly conduct under Massachusetts law. He wrote to me, merely verbally disputing, protesting, even being rude to and or yelling at a cop is not disorderly conduct. The same thing with obstructing government administration. You have to physically be involved. You can't just be sitting there recording and then you're saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. You violating their rights. That's not obstructing government administration. You literally, physically have to get involved. And that physical involvement literally is like, hey, stop touching them. You grabbing people. Hey, you literally, you see what I'm saying? You can't just, I don't like how you're handling this, so I'm just going to classify it as obstructing government administration or disorderly conduct, which they do. The police, when you get arrested, they're going to throw a bunch of charges at you and hope to God that at least one of them stick when you go to court. But merely verbally disputing, protesting, even being rude to and or yelling at a cop is not disorderly conduct. And that's specifically why those charges were later dropped. Not merely because of bad PR by the Cambridge Police Department. I'm no supporter of Gates. That's why my was dropped. They couldn't establish obstructing government administration. They couldn't establish anything that they lied on me. Right? I'm no supporter of Gates. He used to deny that racial profiling and targeting happened to other blacks. But once Gates provided information, his Harvard ID and his driver's license, that he indeed lived at that address, the cop should have left, but he didn't. Moreover, there is no ranting or raving by Gates on the police tape. Not only did Crowley lie, but he flouted the law, yet the majority of whites who were polled support Crowley over Gates and Obama. In 1792, Captain Kimber of the slave ship Recovery was charged with murdering 2 African women after subjecting them to horrendous torture and sexual humiliation. The judge charge to the jury led to his acquittal. The account appears in Lose Your Mother, A Journey Along the Atlantic Slave Route by Sadiah Hartman. The judge advised the jury, when deciding the matter of the captain's guilt, to take into consideration the particular circumstances of the high seas, where all life is violence. That maritime law bullcrap, where it's like you literally have little to no rights because your laws applies as if you at war at sea or some trash. You have to. This consideration makes a very great difference between the actions done upon sea and actions upon land. You have to judge ferocious men who have few but strong ideas, peculiar to their own employment, hardened by danger, fearless by habit. The preservation of ships and lives depends often upon some acts of severity to command instant obedience and discipline and supreme command. These scenes of violence present a picture of human nature, not very amiable, but are frequently justifiable and absolutely requisite, as without which no commerce, no navigation, no defense of the kingdom can be maintained or exist. So it's basically justified him brutally murdering those ladies by simply stating, well, you have to take into consideration that being at sea is very treacherous. It wears on the body and stuff. So, just justify his barbaric behavior, because sometimes it takes barbaric behaviors to, survive on the water. Being on the water is different than on land. I can't make sense of stupid. The high seas have become the urban jungle, full of high-risk inhabitants, or as many of Sergeant Lashley's colleagues would put it, banana-eating jungle bunnies. who require control no matter how severe are the measures used to accomplish this. This was the reasoning of the suburban jury that acquitted the writers of a group of Oakland police who were accused of routinely beating and framing poor black drug dealers in West Oakland, which happens even today. They were acquitted by a suburban jury, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. That's why I tell y'all, jury by trial or trial by jury, not by no bench. Don't you get you no bench trial. They were acquitted by a suburban jury, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. In 4 months of heated deliberations, they hurled insults at each other and even discussed Dirty Harry, the road cop who believed the ends justified the means. And sounding like the judge whose charge to the jury led to the acquittal of the slave ship captain, the mostly white jury got bogged down in a series of long and often contentious debates over the law and the ethical conflicts of frontline cops and tough neighborhoods. Then why y'all don't do that with cops and white, tough neighborhoods? Because I don't know if y'all seen the environments that people that's considered rednecks, hillbillies, white trash. I don't know if y'all seen the way they be living, but yeah. I don't hear this justification when they do wilds at the white people. The black juror, an alternate for a jury that, except for an Asian American, was white, was shocked. Yeah, the only one. Damn. This blows me away, said alternate number 1, an Oakland resident. I can't believe this. They are so guilty. The evidence was overwhelming. She said that the jury could not empathize with the alleged victims or believe that police would abuse their authority. Most black people know that police can lie to make an arrest. Yeah, they do it all the time to us. She said, fighting back tears, but I think the people on this jury don't believe it's possible for police to lie. They just don't get it. And that's why the jury pool is mostly pulled from areas that's out. If you look at any of these cases that actually make it to trial, majority of the people that's pulled out of metropolitan communities, urban communities, the juries that sit on trial come from communities that is not like them. So the fact that they even call them their peers is asinine, because they end up pulling people that's not even from the city. These are people who are so detached from the city, and their only involvement with the city would probably come from informationals through news media that always perpetuates the city as like heinous, cruel, wicked, just involved in all types of debauchery and foolishness. And so you're more likely to get a conviction when your jury is not made up of a bunch of people that is actually your peers. Even when I faced trial, they had nobody from the city of Rochester, and they had one black person as on the jury, and it was an old black dude. I don't know about y'all, but ain't too many young, 27-year-olds are well liked by niggas in their 60s. And I'm just saying. But let's continue. One of the policemen involved in the writer's case fled to Mexico, and the city of Oakland had to pay $10 million to their victims, enough to have provided Oakland schools with much needed equipment. Like the slave captain's judge, most whites believe that such is the state of the inner city, that the laws governing police conduct that apply elsewhere don't apply here. This attitude is supported by television cop shows, a format that has been adopted by both CNN and MSNBC. Notice the number of Hollywood movies in which the hero is a cop whose use of force is so excessive that he's ordered to turn in his badge by a superior, who is usually played by a black actor. After the 3 beers at the White House, Officer Crowley appeared at a triumphant news conference like he owned the place and was immediately adopted as a new media star by cable. Moreover, Mark Furman and Lieutenant Colonel North, maybe they'll make Crowley Sarah Palin's running mate. Crowley, thanking white men with guns throughout the nation for their support, had humiliated a young black president, which is how it's done in other countries where the civilian leader has to yield to the gun toters. The kind of governments that Obama criticized on his trip to Africa and Hillary Clinton is now accusing of corruption. Hillary Clinton. The black professor has been carrying on like Ronald Reagan's speechwriter for a number of years. He acted as the leader of a band of exceptional black people, a dream team. Then Skip Gates found out during his encounter with a lying policeman that it's not a matter of class, it's your black ASS that gets you in trouble with the police. When Gates taught at Duke, he got some racial profiling insurance by going to the police station and identifying himself as a Duke professor so that he wouldn't be subjected to the kind of police treatment accorded those less fortunate blacks. It's crazy that black people be feeling inclined to like give this extra information. Like, I have a financial background, I have an education, just so they don't get the same treatment that is subjected to the majority of black people, which are poor people. To me, it's nuts. I mean, I even witnessed it myself when I got arrested in 2020, and they go through like a little questionnaire asking you, what's your educational background and do you rent or own, which I think is retarded to be asking me during an arrest. But I guess that's how they decide whether they're going to treat you like an indigent or not. But they asked me several questions, and once I told them, yeah, nigga, I got up to a master's degree in criminal justice. I actually know your job better than you. And all you did was graduate from high school and join the police academy for about 26 weeks. Yeah, 6 years of education, the criminal justice system, all up in his brain. You see what I'm saying? And then on top of the fact they found out the veteran status, they like, oh, she's a homeowner instead of a renter at the age of 27. Niggas still didn't even care because they was like, but she is 27, she black, and she's a female. She mouthy. She's acquired an education, and she don't hesitate to motherfucking open her lips and spew that education to us. So we're going to take every corrupt measure that we could possibly can. And like the Bible says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against me in judgment thou shalt condemn. For this is the inheritance of the servants of the Lord, and the righteousness of me. Thus saith the Lord. He stood on his word, and he did exactly what his word says. And now I'm free. These niggas be lying. The police is raggedy. And when you not black, when you're not subjected to what we say. It's one of them things. When the shoe ain't on your feet, baby, you don't know how it feels to walk in them shoes. You don't. But let's continue. He was further humiliated when, after the Beer Fest meeting, he had to come up with a statement which, though very eloquent and fancy, was similar to Rodney King's "Can we all get along?" In his statement, Gates bonded with a man who tried to justify his arrest with a false police report, which damaged both Gates and Lucia Whalen's reputations. Gates called him a nice guy in the New York Times and said that the two might attend sports events together and have dinner. Now, I never understand that these black people, because it happens even today, these niggas get disparaged, dragged, okay? But then turn around and be like, yeah, he's a nice guy, he's a great guy, Yeah. Like, is that like a prerequisite so you could stay in their good graces? It's like, it's a part of the humiliation ritual. Please explain it to me. Remember, I don't comprehend retard. Let's continue. In his statement, Gates bonded with a man who tried to justify his arrest with a false police report, which damaged both Gates and Lucia Whalen's reputation. Gates called him a nice guy in the New York Times and said that the two might attend sports events together and have dinner. He even offered to get the officer's kids into Harvard. Maybe the officer who killed a black man in Oakland the other night should send in her children's application to Gates. Yeah. Is Gates a candidate for the Stockholm Syndrome? But Obama and Gates aren't the only ones who are the targets of contempt from armed men. Such is the power that the white majority has granted the police that the California correction industry even turned Governor Schwarzenegger into a girly man. After contract negotiations, they bragged that for every nickel offered by the state, they got a dime. An editorial in the San Francisco Chronicle shows how costly it is for those who choose revenge over rehabilitation. For decades, the corrections budget has swallowed more and more of the state's general fund, starving priorities like higher education. But the political ramifications of looking soft on crime cowed legislators and governors alike. Yes, it did. And they still like that, where they don't want to seem tough on crime, which that switch came in 1988 when Michael Dukakis was running against George Bush, the daddy, and he was winning, and George Bush, through his wicked dealings, got motherfucking Willie Horton released from prison, and then he used Willie Horton, who was a person who should have never got released. Anybody who looked at his background would not ever furloughed him, but they furloughed a black man because they had a mission. They had a narrative that they wanted to push. That black man came out, wreaked havoc on some white people, and then they was like, look at this. This was happening when you soft on crime. This is Michael Dukakis' fault. Look at this black man. Then they darkened up Willie Horton's picture on the news to make him to feed that white fear, that white anxiety. Oh my gosh, look at this sadistic black man on the loose. We gotta vote for George Bush. And George Bush won. Michael Dukakis lost. Even though Michael Dukakis was pro education and system, pro furlough programs, all that stuff. He lost. And then when Bill Clinton came around in 92, that's when Bill Clinton came out with his crime bill. And he's like, I don't want to be viewed as soft on crime. Let's continue. But the political ramifications of looking soft on crime cow legislators and governors alike. So we built prison after prison and stuffed them all to overcapacity. Now, Arnold is going along with the plan to build a showcase state-of-the-art death row that would cost the taxpayers $356 million with a $35 million cost overrun. These California suburbanites are the people who gave us the 3 strikes law after the tragic murder of a suburban white girl, Paulie Claus, a law that is one of the reasons for California becoming a failed state. 3 strikes, yeah, the 3 strikes law. As the Wall Street Journal put it, writing about white suburbanites, those who have the least to fear from crime, are driving the issue. It's crazy, especially when they say that when it comes to violent crime, black people are more likely to be subjected, lose their life to violence in their city. Yet we got white people dictating what happens, even though they are to be the least affected. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. The Wall Street Journal attributed their fear to watching images of blacks on TV. Maybe CNN's Black America. Oh my gosh. You weirdos. 3 strikes law. This is weird as freak, man. Just highlighting real quick so I can come back to this. All right, let's finish up this last page and we out of here, y'all. I'm going to go get my breakfast. 3 beers are going to do it. The only result will be a reality show about the event that will accrue more profits to Gates, the intellectual entrepreneur, perhaps co-hosted by his new pal, Sergeant Crawley, cable's latest matinee idol. Already, they've gotten an invitation from Rabbi Abraham Cooper, Associate Dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in the Museum of Tolerance, to do a tag team lecture. This is a road show that's certain to entertain the idea, one of whose best-selling product is the racial divide. I've heard through the grapevine that PBS is offering Gates millions of dollars to do a racial profiling special. Given PBS politics, maybe a musical comedy would end with blacks and police locking arms and a chorus line singing the show's hit song, "We Both Overreacted." Racial profiling will continue, and the attitude of most whites will continue to be, we don't care what you do with blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans, just keep them out of our hair. A better solution will be the one practiced by citizens of my North Oakland district, black, white, Asian, and Hispanic. For over 20 years, we've met with the police on a regular basis without suds being consumed, maybe some cake and potato chips. Sometimes we raise our voices at them without being hauled out of Oakland's Santa Fe school where we met, handcuffed and charged with disorderly conduct. But recently, when the police cracked down on a criminal operation that endangered the lives of residents on my block, I led the applause. One of those who didn't share in our victory was Sergeant Daniel Sakai, who was trying to help us with our main problem of a recalcitrant absentee landlord from a 2-family household bill who has put our neighbors' lives in jeopardy by allowing her abandoned property to be used by criminals who engage in a full-scale shootout on our block one morning. She refuses to even put up a no trespassing sign. Sergeant Sakai was white. Some of our neighbors went to City Hall and signed the book to mourn his death. He was among 4 policemen who were murdered during an incident when the mean-spirited, fear-inspired policies of 3 strikes, traffic profiling, and the National Rifles Association collided. That National Rifles Association name is always linked up with some strange activities, especially with mass shootings. Black Oakland Mayor Ron DeLumes and Congressperson Barbara Lee showed up to join in the morning during a televised funeral as part of a calculated public insult which offended Oakland's black leaders. Mayor DeLumes was not permitted to speak. Let's all have a beer. So for those who typed in with me, man, I appreciate it. I hope y'all learned something from this. You know, share, like, subscribe if you're feeling generous. And let's get the conversation going. Again, I will be here later. I'm going to change the live time because I'm well beyond the live time. But I'll be here later watching some videos, some basketball videos if y'all want to tap in with me. But I appreciate y'all for locking in with me. And yeah, I'll see y'all later. We're going to finish up this book. We're going to finish up these books. We're going to finish them up because I got some other stuff that I want to read. I don't know if I'm going to read them in its entirety, but I'm definitely going to like show y'all, maybe read a couple of excerpts or something from it, but y'all see what I'm saying. Like, then there's this bad boy. And I like this one because it's just all research data points. There's no conclusions or claims being made. It's just like you can make your own. You see what I'm saying? My bad. America is black, and it started off as black the world, in fact. But I love y'all. God bless, and I shall catch you, beauty.